lights down low. Time for blood to flow. Ghosts and ghouls, you know what we mean. We're all the terror that makes you scream. Some movies creep, some make you leap. There's killer plants or blobs. We cover them all on your favorite pod. So many horrors we can choose. Even when you win, you lose. Because the call is coming from inside the room. Life ends pretty fast. Some screams fade, but some chills will last. The killers stalk and then they slash. It's the 30-something movie podcast. The clock rings out the midnight chimes. We all go a little mad sometimes. Whatever you do, don't fall asleep. And if you're in space, they can't hear you scream.
It's the 30-something movie podcast. It's still October, and let's just survey the other hosts. Can we just keep that as like our normal theme song?
It's a good tune.
It works for me.
It's a good tune. I like it.
I feel like I don't want the podcast to skew horror all year long because I don't know that we can do that. But I don't know. It's what the kids call a banger. Now I don't know what decade those kids are from, but
yeah.
I'd say it's a rockin' tune.
It is, man.
It's lit. Is that? No, I still think that's like another decade away.
Oh yeah, let's not.
Am I? No.
I think maybe we shouldn't go there.
It's not a clanker because that's AI or computers.
So I know clanker from Star Wars, and when something's pretty lit, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
However, I think one decade back, it's if it's pretty lit, then
it's groovy. Let's just stick with that.
I think it's good, man.
Groovy is universal to my way of thinking. So
I'm fine. Let me ask it this way: of those of us that are in educational institutions that serve teenagers, how would you say it is on a scale from 6 to 7?
6, 7.
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't know if I know this joke.
Oh, but do you not get any of that at the high school?
Oh, you don't get any 6, 7 at the high school?
I guess not.
Oh, Bo, you're missing out on a vital like 0.3% of life.
Okay.
I told the 6th grade band that if they kept playing past when I cut them off, they're just giving off negative aura, and they really and that set them back. They're like, oh,
yeah.
So I guess negative aura is a thing.
Well, I told a kid that they were aura farming, and that kind of blew their minds that I knew what that meant.
Aura farming. What is aura farming?
I don't know what that means.
That's when you're trying too hard to be cool.
Oh.
Really?
Because the aura is like cool. It's like being cool. If you've got aura is like the new Riz.
Oh Christ!
Yeah, aura is the new Riz. I love how stuff lasts like 2 months now before it's outdated.
Yes, Bo. Jesus has both Riz and aura.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't know what either of those mean, but cool.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, aura farming. I think I'm going to start using aura farming the same way Mr. Blonde used his gun in the bank, just everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm just
spray it everywhere.
Scattershot.
Yeah. Yep.
When you absolutely positively must confuse every last teenager in the room, except no substitutes.
Dude, I like 8th grade band. Yeah.
Yeah.
To quote Vincent Hanna,
8th grade band.
the next time, to quote Vincent Hanna, the next time these guys walk out of a score, they are in for the surprise of their life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be like aura farming.
Yeah.
That's grand.
You got to come to our weekly meetings, Pat. I have a standing segment during our team meetings called John's Slang of the Week.
John's Slang of the Week.
Yeah.
John, when are your team meetings?
They're on Tuesday mornings.
Why is this not a blog?
Because there's already too many people doing it. I would be lost in the crowd.
Oh, I don't know. Slang of the Week is pretty good.
It's
middle school slang of the week from Vernon Hills. Like there's a whole angle you can play there
and from your middle-aged teacher too.
Right. I think that's yeah. There's a whole thing there, man.
Now the fun thing is, can my
You've already got your opener to the blog.
I do, yeah.
Aura is the new Riz.
Yes. Yeah. Now,
Like-
the fun part for me is, can my colleagues trust that I'm giving them the right definitions?
I would like to think that I know you well enough
Uh-huh.
that were I in the room when you were delivering it, I could tell.
Okay.
Whether they can or not, I don't know.
Challenge accepted.
That's like that's like a segment on Wait, Don't Tell You.
Mhm.
John
Mm.
is going to give you 3 middle school slang words of the week. You have to identify the one that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
2 truths and a lie.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's your 3: marker, chopped, or 41. Which one of
And
those is
41
slang?
is a thing. 41 is a thing. Shot, like CHOT.
Chopped.
And are we playing 2 truths and a lie, or is only
Well,
one of them real?
one of those is not real.
Okay, the one that isn't real is, I'm going to say it's the first one.
Marker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll
Chopped sounds like a
go with
thing.
both.
You're going with Bo?
Yeah.
All right. You are correct. That was just a term I looked up on the media browser on Adobe Audition just now. It had markers. That is the one that is not real. Chopped means ugly or unattractive.
Okay.
And 41, nobody knows what it means. It's a
Yeah,
it's
everyone's
a
just
mystery
trying to
number.
find a number now.
It's
They're
like
trying to be the next.
well, it's like the 6 7.
The next
Nobody
6
knows what it
7,
means.
exactly.
Yeah.
I still don't know what it means, but I can tell you that it's a thing now.
Bo, nobody knows.
The problem is
what do you mean
the
nobody
problem
knows?
is no one watches Seinfeld anymore. And if they had watched Seinfeld, they would know you can't give yourself a nickname. You
Right.
can't just you can't be the next whatever.
Right. The
No, I mean,
language.
if I walk around calling myself the dude, I'm the dude, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh my God, did
Well-
you see the clip of Jeff Bridges on, I think it was Fallon as the dude?
It was one of the late nights. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, it was
Yeah.
so good. Little white Russian humor, the whole thing.
Well, I think to summarize, I think your point about Seinfeld is accurate. I think it's, as that was a show about nothing, I think some of the modern language is a language about nothing. Because
Yeah.
a lot of the slang, when you ask them, they're like, what does that mean? What do you mean? No, what does that mean? I don't know. Well, why are you-
Skibbity what?
Yeah. I mean, we've moved so far beyond the Skibbity Ohio Riz that,
Yeah.
we're not even there anymore. That's old.
hmm
Yeah. I'm sorry, Bill. It's Halloween. I know I didn't mean to scare you, but
I have never felt quite as old as I feel in this moment.
uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, back in my day, we said stuff that made sense, like gag me with a spoon.
I get
Mhm.
that. You can
Mhm.
gag your, I mean, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Right.
It's a thing.
Right.
Because you
Yeah.
idiot, it's dull. It'll hurt more.
Yes.
With a spoon. It's dull, you idiot. It'll hurt more.
Why a spoon, cousin? Why not a knife or a fork? Say,
Yes.
You know what the best part?
of
I
waking
don't
up.
remember if it's that one or later in the movie, but he uses one of my favorite insults. I love the word twit. You twit. I love it.
Mhm.
It
Yes.
just encompasses so much, and it's so terse and perfect for just.
It's so British.
It is. It really is.
And to fast forward to a future episode, and so are these.
Indeed.
All right. Well, that's not the movie we're talking about this time around. We've come here to get dark and black and white and very philosophical. Are you guys
Mhm.
ready to be philosophical? Now that we've melted our brains with the modern slang that the teenagers are using,
I'm actually thinking it might help.
it might. It might. Would it help if you got out and pushed?
it might.
So our movie this time around is The Addiction from 1995, directed by Abel Ferrara. I have not seen a ton of, in fact, I don't know that I've seen any of his other movies. I think I have had maybe a glancing blow on one or two of his other movies, but I've never actually seen the full movie. but kind of, I think, fairly well known for doing some more kind of low budget indie, somewhat sometimes shocking movies. But definitely he's got a couple at least that deal with the idea of death and evil and addiction and things like this. So this will be an interesting one, because I know Pat, I know as soon as we watched this one for the first time, maybe a couple of weeks ago, you were like, when do we get to talk about this?
Yeah.
So I know you've been raring to go for a while.
Yeah. This one, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, we're going to be talking about the addiction. So I think we don't have too many other things I don't think there's any new news or anything like that. All right, we'll just go ahead and jump on into this one. So this one came out on October 6, 1995. So we are almost very, very close to 30 years to the day, just a little bit past it. MPAA rating, not rated. Runtime of 1 hour and 22 minutes. Director Abel Ferrara, who did Bad Lieutenant and King of New York. Writer was Nicholas St. John, who did King of New York and The Funeral. Funeral I have not seen, but I have read a couple of different things that say if you wanted to watch a couple of Ferrara's movies together, that The Addiction and The Funeral would be two companion pieces that would be good to watch together. Producers on this one: Preston L. Holmes, Esquire, Russell Simmons, Dennis Hahn, Fernando, and Anthony Blinken. Now, before some of you ask, yes, Bo, that is the correct face.
The Anthony Blinken?
The Anthony Blinken. The Anthony Blinken, who was the 71st United States Secretary of State from 2021 to 2025, was a producer on this movie.
Wait a minute. Hang on. Wait a minute.
Yeah, slow the pod car down.
Wait a minute. What is... Okay. Anthony Blinken was a producer on this movie?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I've dealt with stranger facts. Not many.
Yeah, there are there's a couple of movies. I believe there's a couple of movies that he has produced. Yeah. Let's see. He was, I want to say, when this movie came out, he was a speechwriter. He was a speechwriter, and I had looked this up just a little bit ago. Let me find my notes here. He was serving as on President Clinton's National Security Council and working as a speechwriter.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. And
when
so
this movie came out.
So yeah, when this movie came out in 1995, he was working in the Clinton administration, and I was actually able to find a direct quote on here that Blinken comes from a wealthy New York City banking family, and it was around, the late 80s, early 90s that he had become friends with a bunch of different kind of up-and-coming filmmakers and creative types in New York City, and I found a quote from one of the other producers, the Fernando Solichin. They said, "He's a very passionate and artistic gentleman and was a good friend at the time. I asked him to invest in this movie, and he did invest." So, yeah.
I feel like this is a plot right out of The West Wing.
It could be.
Like a B story or a C story.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
I saw that and I was like, that's crazy.
I assumed you were going to say, no, not that Anthony Blinken. And I was going to say, there's two Anthony Blinkens.
Mm-hmm. No, it's the Blinken from Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Exactly.
Oh,
it honestly makes so much more sense that it is the same Anthony Blinken. Because if it wasn't, I don't know. I think my brain would go.
Right. It was either going to be, what was going to fry your brain was either going to be the amount of philosophy in this movie or the fact that Anthony Blinken is a producer.
I think both.
Both. Mm-hmm. Little column A, little column B. Composer was Joe Delia, who did King of New York and Bad Lieutenant. Cinematographer was Ken Kelch, who did New Rose Hotel and The Funeral. Editor was Mayan Lowe, who did The Blackout and R. Xmas. Production company was October Films. Budget, I don't think there was any publicly available information on the budget, and the worldwide box office was about $300,000. So yeah, did not do well in the theaters. In fact, I believe it only ended up showing on a total of 14 screens across the U.S. when it was released.
14, not like 1,400.
Yeah, 1-4. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. If
that's the definition of an art house movie, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a low, I don't want to say low bar because that's not the right word. Is that a record for the podcast?
I don't know. I'd have
I
to go
mean-
back and look.
Yeah, I guess Demzelvis probably,
That, yes.
but I feel like that was a special case.
Unless they showed it on a screen in the back of somebody else's garage too.
Mm,
I
it's-
I think the band director was screened on
I'm
more of screens than
Yes,
in this movie.
that's possible.
Which, by the
possible.
way,
Yes.
Patreon episode, the band director.
Oh no.
we could do that.
The
What year was that made?
Or not the fiction, the behind the scenes, the trivia
Right.
for the making of the band director will take like that will be a 3-part episode right
Mhm.
there.
When was
What
that
was-
made? Was that 15 years ago?
I think the trailer gives the date.
Does it really? Okay. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Okay. All right. Well, we could do a screening of it, and
Well, Ed Moto was a thing.
that's true. That's true.
Oh, wow.
It was you
Yeah,
know,
because I was Dr. Edward Moto. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to find that, and then we can see if we can have
Yeah,
like a special art house screening somewhere.
Oh
I love
God.
everything about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Let's-
fact, I would go so far as to say,
That's extraordinary. What would you like to do next?
Yeah, I'd like to, if we ever have a 30con where we do some kind of like a convention based on our podcast, we could
Oh, yeah.
have the band director play in front of something like Mr. Holland's Opus. I think that's a perfect pairing.
yes.
Actually,
Yes.
we can do a little series. It can be the band director, Mr. Holland's Opus, and Hot Shots Part 2. Because I feel like
Right there.
I feel like there's a spiritual through line if you mash those movies together.
I got it.
I was gonna say
American
Whiplash,
Graffiti,
but-
Mm-hmm.
the band director, Mr. Holland's.
I feel like all we're doing now is we're doing what was the name of when Johnny Carson would do he'd have the envelope and what was the name of the character?
Oh, Zoltan. No, not
Yeah,
Zoltan.
But yeah, he'd put
The
like
Great Karnak.
the Great Karnak.
Karnak. Yes,
and
yes, yes.
He'd put the envelope up to his head and he'd be like, the band director, Mr. Holland's Opus, and Hot Shots Part 2.
Mhm.
Three movies that would be great to see together.
That's some wild,
That's-
wacky stuff.
That's some wild, wacky stuff right there. Anyway, here we go.
All right, the addiction.
Back to the addiction. Flickmetrics gives it a 67, a 6.7. Would you say
6-7.
6.7? Oh, this is gonna get just like
I
our
I
day to
just
day
said
life. It's
6
gonna get real old real fast.
I just said 6-7 and I heard from the other end of the house, Dad. I don't know whether it's being called out or
That's the only response that's
mhm.
needed.
Yeah.
Dad.
yeah.
Well, much like us, this is gonna get real old real fast.
Mm-hmm.
Cinema score, probably because it was only on 14 screens. They don't have a cinema score for this one. I'm taking a wild guess
Yeah,
there. And
14 screens and 20 people to ask. You know?
right. Lily Taylor plays Kathleen Conklin. She was in I Shot Andy Warhol and The Haunting. Christopher Walken played Pena. He was in King of New York and The Deer Hunter. Annabella Sciorra played Casanova. She was in The Hand That Rocks the Cradle and Jungle Fever. Edie Falco plays Jean. She was in The Sopranos and Sunshine State. Paul Calderon plays Professor. He was in King of New York and Out of Sight. Fredro Starr plays Black. He was in Clockers and Strapped. Catherine Irby plays anthropology student. She was in What About Bob and Law and Order Criminal Intent. Michael Imperioli played the missionary. He was in Goodfellas and The Sopranos. Stephen Randazzo plays the doctor. He was in King of New York and Bad Lieutenant. And Kim Sykes was the nurse. She was in New Jack City and Juice. So we'll talk more about this as we go along, but Abel Ferrara conceived this movie as kind of a philosophical allegory for substance abuse and dependence, because at the time he made this, I think from what I understand from hearing interviews of him talk about it, that he wouldn't have considered himself a full-on addict, but he was a heroin user at the time he made this. And then it was, I think, after this movie, I don't know if it was soon after or years after, he did have about a decade of his life where he was a full-blown heroin addict. So this is obviously something that's very, very personal to him. Christopher Walken's character Pena, it actually was supposed to be flip-flop. So the Casanova character that Annabella Sciorra played was supposed to be the male, and Pena was supposed to be the female. And Christopher Walken loved the Pena character so much that he wanted to have those switched, so they ended up switching those characters up. You have a lot of, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the philosophy in this one, but you have a lot of different existential and theological references to philosophers like Nietzsche and Sartre and Descartes and all of those. One other thing that I read in some of the trivia was that some of his films also frequently explore the idea of Catholic guilt. And so there might be, because there's some religious imagery in this and that, it kind of may play into that just a little bit too. Lily Taylor's performance in this one earned her some pretty high praise at the Berlin International Film Festival. And yes, here's what I was looking for earlier. The movie opened on only 7 screens in the US before expanding to 14. And so obviously when you open to 7 screens and expand to 14, you are definitely talking about a cult following because nobody else saw it. All right. Quick voiceover, our Don LaFontaine style voiceover of this one. But as I've been doing for all the other ones, it'll be in completely the wrong genre. And then we'll play the trailer for you, and then we'll jump into some major moments. In the city that never sleeps, philosophy student Kathleen Conklin is about to awaken to a darker truth. After one fateful bite from the mysterious Casanova, she's consumed by an addiction unlike any other. Kathleen must face the bloodstained mirror of her own soul before it's too late.
Nice night. Look at me and tell me to go away. Don't ask. Tell me. Please. You think that's gonna stop me?
I haven't been feeling well. You're not kidding, you don't look so good. Dependency is a marvelous thing. It does more for the soul than any formulation of doctoral material.
You can never get enough, can you? But you learn to control it. You learn, like the Tibetans, to survive on a little.
There is a dual nature to the addiction. It satisfies the hunger, which evil engenders. But it also dulls our perception, so we are helped to forget how ill we really are. We drink to escape the fact we're alcoholics.
We're not evil because of the evil we do, but we do evil because we are evil.
What would you like to confess?
God, forgive me.
All right. First thing I want to comment on is the song that plays in the background, the I Want to Get High song that played during the movie and played there. It was done by Cypress Hill of just a couple years before this, the Insane in the Brain.
Oh, okay.
So, which is funny though, when that song started playing during the movie, the first thing I immediately think of is the Afro Man song, Because I Got High.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
slightly different tone to it. I don't think that one fits with the addiction.
No,
Mhm.
no, it's
No.
a little goofier.
Yeah. If Mel Gibson or Mel Gibson, if Mel Brooks were to
Brooks.
cover this one, that's a very different one.
Yeah.
If Mel Brooks were to cover this one, it would be The Addiction, High and Loving It. Then you would play.
Mhm.
Oh,
Then you would play Because I Got High by Afro Man.
yes.
Which now I'm just thinking, because I know that's one of our other movies that's coming up soon. It makes me think, like, what are some other ridiculous movies that should never be covered by a comedian? And if you could take The Addiction and have that turn into a Mel Brooks movie,
Mhm.
I think there's some funny stuff you could do with that.
Oh, without a doubt.
Not a funny movie in its own right, but funny things could be done.
The
Yes.
Addiction, Dead and Loving It?
High and Loving It.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm. All right. So we've broken this one down into 10 major moments to get you through the plot. So if you have not seen this one, which, unless you're us or unless you went to one of those 14 screens, or you found it in the years following that, you may not have seen this one. And so if you're wanting to go find a copy of this, I know that I was able to find it at different times. It's been on the Criterion Channel streaming service. It was on Canopy, which I know you can get access to through your library card. I don't know that that's a guarantee that it's available for everyone using their library card. It may be in certain areas that it's available. I'm not sure how that particular one works. But there's a couple of different ways to find it streaming online or renting it or whatnot. So as we always say, if you want to go find it, watch the movie, and then come on back, we will still be here. Just put us on pause and we'll just sit quietly inside your phone and just wait until because that's where we live. We're little.
It's warm in there.
It is. We're little tiny people just living inside your phone. So when you pause us, we just sit there and stay quiet and
We wait, we hang out.
yeah. We ruin your Wordle streak is what we do.
Wordle. Oh,
And
I
your,
got back to Wordle.
And your Duolingo streak too.
Yes. That's stupid owl. I hate that owl.
If you're gonna do it.
Yeah. There for a moment, I almost had a bit of a slip up, and because I was about to say the word Wordle and ruin before it, I almost said we're going to ruin your Wordle.
Oh.
I almost went Elmer Fudd on it.
Marriage.
Marriage.
Well, that wasn't Elmer Fudd, sorry.
We're going to sit in your phone and ruin your Wordle streak.
Marriage is what brings us together.
You basically, if you wanted to take that movie and change it up a bit, you could have Elmer Fudd do that scene.
Sure.
Marriage. Yeah. Killing the wabbit is what brings us here together today.
Kill the wabbit.
Is it wabbit season or is it duck season?
Favorite.
All right. Speaking of something that has nothing to do with Looney Tunes, 10 major moments for the addiction. We have the bite that starts it all. We start off pretty quickly at the beginning of the movie. Kathleen Conklin, a quiet and introverted philosophy PhD student at NYU, has her world turned upside down one night when she's attacked by a mysterious woman named Casanova. Out of nowhere, Casanova pulls her into a stairwell, bites her neck, and drinks her blood. It's strange, it's terrifying, and it is the beginning of something that Kathleen does not exactly know what it is. In the days that follow, Kathleen starts to feel a bit off. She feels just a bit outside. Sunlight suddenly feels like poison. See, the tie in there is bat, like baseball, bat, vampire, bat. Right? It all, 1,000 points of light. It all comes together. Okay. 1,000 points of light, which vampires would not like. Food makes her sick, and she's growing pale and restless. And fearing that she's caught something like AIDS, HIV, she goes to get tested. The only thing the doctors find is anemia. But she knows that something deep inside her has changed, and it's not just physical. Kathleen's personality takes a sharp turn. She becomes bolder, more erratic, even a little predatory. One night, she invites her dissertation advisor to her apartment, seduces him, and then steals cash from his wallet after he falls asleep. Her classmate Jean notices right away this is not the same Kathleen anymore. During finals week, Kathleen meets an anthropology student at the library. They'll go back to the woman's apartment to study. Things take a bit of a shocking turn. Kathleen bites her neck and drinks her blood. When her victim sobs in disbelief, Kathleen coolly says, "My indifference is not the concern here. It's your astonishment that needs studying." Yeah, I usually studied by myself in college. I never really studied with a group of people, but I've never had that happen at the end of a study session where someone attacks you and just takes a big old chunk out of your neck. Yeah. But I didn't go to NYU. So for all I know, that's just it's a New York thing.
Yeah.
Maybe
just
that's
be
how
part
they
of the
roll.
course.
Could be. I also did not study philosophy. So not a lot of the journalism or education majors going around biting each other.
No, you would hope not.
No. Later, Kathleen runs into a street acquaintance who goes by the name Black. She flirts with him. They leave together. And just when things seem to be heading in a more human direction, she attacks him too. Her addiction to blood has kind of completely taken hold of her, and she's not really even bothering to fight what she's becoming at this point. Back on campus, Kathleen confronts her friend Jean, rambling about sin and guilt and the nature of evil, and then bites her. The intellectual ideas that she had once debated in classrooms have now become real for her, kind of playing out through her own moral collapse in all of this. In the movie, you get a bunch of, especially early on, but then throughout the movie, you get a bunch of flashes of photographs of Nazi death camps and things like that. And I think part of the dissertation that she's working on has to do with the idea of evil and what is evil and how does how does humanity interact with evil? And so that we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's really kind of starting to what she once talked about as hypothetical or theoretical is now becoming kind of a real thing for her. On one of her nighttime walks, Kathleen meets Pena, an older vampire who seems almost peaceful. He claims he has nearly conquered his craving for blood and has become almost human again. He takes her in, tries to help her control her urges, and even suggests that she reads Naked Lunch. It's a little bit mentorship, it's a little bit intervention, vampire style, however. Somehow, Kathleen does manage to pull herself together long enough to defend her dissertation, and she nails it. She earns her PhD, but the victory seems a bit hollow. Her mind may be sharp, but her soul is still unraveling a bit. At her graduation celebration, things start out normal enough. This is the graduation party gone horribly, horribly wrong. So you start off, normal graduation party. I'm sure we've all been to a graduation party that starts the way this one did. People, mingling, milling about, talking to each other. Then Kathleen and Jean sneak off to feed on a waitress. And then that one bite ends up triggering complete chaos. And Casanova and the other infected join in. The party kind of explodes into this gory, bloody mess of violence. And Jimmy Buffett would be proud. There is a feeding frenzy that happens. After overdosing on blood and racked with guilt, Kathleen wanders the streets covered in it. She ends up in a hospital and begs the nurse to let her die. When that doesn't work, though, she asks to open the curtains, essentially choosing to burn in the daylight. But before that can happen, Casanova appears, quoting some theology and shutting the curtains again. Then a priest comes in next, offering her final rites, and in the end, Kathleen visits her own grave in daylight and reflects in the voiceover, self-revelation is annihilation of self. And it is a somewhat ambiguous, some have said, is a somewhat ambiguous, haunting, poetic final note of a vampire story that is not quite the same as other vampire stories you might have seen.
Yeah.
Those are the 10 major moments. I don't think, there's a few little details here and there that I glossed over, but I knew we'd talk more about them as we go into the deeper thoughts. Should we sink our teeth deeper into our thoughts?
Yes, I think it's teeth sinking time.
Let's do it.
And now, deep thoughts.
Okay, I don't think I have to ask when was the first time you watched this, because I'm going to have a feeling that for all of us, it was within the last 2 weeks.
That is a fair statement.
Okay, all right. So before we dive a little bit deeper into this one, just initial thoughts. Big picture here, did you like this movie when you watched it? Oh, did
Like
you
like is what I would call an interesting term here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting. It's a very art house type film. It's supposed to make you think, and it does that very effectively. I don't know if I can say like.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Bo. I was kind of cutting across your answer,
Please.
but I think it's the classic. I liked it, but wasn't necessarily entertained in the sense that I didn't derive enjoyment from what I saw, but I liked it on the level of I found it compelling, right? And I know we've said this about other movies, yeah, it was good. I quote unquote liked it, but not in the same level that I would like, Skyfall or Star Wars or another movie that was meant more for entertainment than to make you think.
Yeah, I think we'll get into this a little bit, but I think there are times where when a movie leans heavily on philosophy, it can sometimes turn me off from enjoying it as much as I might have otherwise. When a movie, I've read and I've heard some criticisms of this movie that it doesn't go deep enough with the philosophy, and I've heard criticisms that this movie comes across as being overly pretentious because it just
Because they mentioned Sartre more than twice.
Probably, yes.
I mean,
yes. When you're name dropping a lot of philosophical deep cuts, and to me they seem like deep cuts. There might be some philosophy PhD out there going, well, actually, this is the philosophy for dummies version of I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't know. Sometimes when a movie I mean, we just got done rewatching not that long ago, Jacob's Ladder, and I think that there is some philosophical stuff in that one, as you're talking about good and evil, heaven and hell, those type of things. I think that one I appreciate and I am entertained by, and I really enjoy watching that movie because it still blends that with a really interesting story, compelling characters. It doesn't go overly heavy on making you feel like you've got to read a philosophy textbook to really and truly understand what they're saying. And I think that might be one of the reasons why I enjoyed this movie. Will I go back and watch it again? I don't know. Probably not anytime soon. I think it was interesting for what it is. I mean, it's a fairly, at least to me, it seems like a fairly different take. And I feel like I've watched enough vampire movies to be able to say this. It seems like a fairly different take on the vampire genre. I mean, it's much more low budget. It's much more about the addiction side of the vampire lifestyle. And so I don't know that is not something that I have seen taken up as the main driving force of the movie in a lot of other vampire movies. I mean, it's touched on, it's talked about in other vampire movies. I think some of the Blade movies, go into a little bit of the drive or the thirst for blood in those movies. This one, I thought it was interesting that it does it. I mean, it goes full on into, this is just like heroin addiction, to take the very direct metaphor that the director has said this is, and that the writer said this is. Metaphor. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I saw you looking at me as soon as I said that. Metaphor. Yeah. And again, make him just sound a little bit drunk and you got Sean Connery. Metaphor. Metaphor.
Money penny.
Money penny. If I got
I'll show you a metaphor.
I've got a, what's a metaphor, Money penny? Yes.
Oh crap.
Anyway, so yes, I think part of it is when it leans so heavily on the philosophy of it all, I think sometimes that's where it loses me a bit. And I don't know that I can say I was overly entertained by it. It's not one that, I think it's one of those movies, and we've kind of talked a little bit before about, are there movies and maybe slightly older movies where the assumption was you're going to watch this once, and it's not the expectation that a movie is going to be viewed over and over and over again, like we sometimes do today when we've got streaming and when we've got ways to rewatch movies endlessly if we want to. I think this is a movie that is maybe best watched once. And you walk away from it, you take what you're going to take from it, and that's what it is. I mean, it's got a lot of interesting pieces to it. As I'm watching it, I'm actually making what ended up in my brain being a little bit of a funny connection, because I'm watching this and I'm going, all right, so there's a lot of there's the regular vampire stuff. It's not overly gory, like you don't tend to see a lot of blood in this movie, which is interesting for a vampire movie, but there's a lot of biting, there's a lot of blood sucking, but it's also in black and white. There's a lot of pictures of Nazis going on, and you got some stringed instruments. So this is mash it all up, and this is like a real Schindler's Lips kind of a situation here.
Oh, jeez.
You went a long way.
It was,
Yeah.
it was.
You
I've never ran cross country before, but I felt like it was a cross country walk to be able to get there.
I was gonna say you were coming from downtown on that one.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was I know they just did the Chicago Marathon, but I feel like that was my best effort. That's the closest I'm ever going to get to running a marathon is the walk
right
it
there.
took to get to that joke.
Well, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'd like to not be a simpleton for my entire life, but I think I am a simpleton, and I wish
But
there
Pat,
was something that
but
just,
Pat, it's so much fun.
it is. But I think that it would be nice to just say, hey, read these 3 books and you'll understand what they're going for.
Mhm.
Understand this and you'll see what they were hitting.
Right.
I can only really make do with what I've got. And I know that they were talking about the philosophy, but the big thing that really got up in my face in watching this movie was not only is it a vampire movie, so you're seeing all the traditional, okay, well, this person gets bit and now this person's infected and so on and so forth. But it just the overlay with like addiction, like you mentioned, the heroin
Mhm,
addiction, and,
mhm.
and how they decided to play that out. Now, if there was a deeper philosophy that was trying to be passed on with this movie, I don't want to say I missed it, but I think for me, it fell wide of the mark because what hit me are the things that I am more familiar with, movies about vampires to some degree, and then also, where drug addiction is a real thing, a scary thing, and I think those are the tones that hit me. And so that, some of the imagery, the idea that just seeing her personality change so much, seeing her, seduce the professor, and then while he's passed out, she's, you know, stealing all his money, just different things that you hear about when drug addiction takes over someone's life. Where where I kind of went off the rails with it, or where it kind of lost me a little bit, was in that connection where they were talking about do we do evil because we're evil, or are
Mhm.
the evil acts as a result of us choosing to be evil?
Yeah.
All of that, where that kind of fell fell away for me was it got me kind of questioning, okay, well, are they using drug addiction, or are they using vampires as a proxy for describing what, you know, drug addiction, having a commentary on that? Or is all of this just kind of setting the scene to espouse a philosophy? And then on top of that, I began thinking, well, how are they depicting drug addiction? Because, okay, I see the parts where it was like, okay, it became a destructive force in this person's life. They, didn't recognize her. She started pushing away friends. She started attacking friends, stealing from people, all of which is real. But then all of a sudden, we're sitting there and, she throws a party and there's a complete bloodbath,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? Which I know everyone's going to laugh when I say this, but I'm like, okay, if we're following the drug addiction thing, that almost seems to be like a scene out of Reefer Madness. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
if if we were following this idea that vampires are, that's the proxy for drug addiction. So like that didn't make as much sense. And then I kind of got into, okay, well, we look at drug addiction a whole lot different now than we did 30 years ago. So where 30 years ago you might be saying, oh, well, it has to do with, evil in our soul, or we're choosing to do evil and all that. Now we look at addiction as exactly that. Our brains have been, a person that becomes addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever, your brain gets rewired. And it's not just a matter of you're making a choice to quote unquote do evil. It's that whatever substance you're addicted to has rewired your brain,
Mhm.
treatment as opposed to criminality and so forth. And so that kind of got me thinking, like, okay, well, is part of what I'm bumping on in this movie and the philosophical commentary, am I just struggling because this movie is looking at addiction through the lens of the 1990s and I'm looking at it from the lens of 2025? Or so that's where it just kind of lost me a little bit. And no fault of the movie, it's the fact that I'm a simpleton. But I guess, I guess a little, throw me a bone here, Scott. Like what are we trying to say with this movie?
Yeah. Well,
And I guess that's where it kind of went sideways for me.
yeah. Let me confuse the issue further by not answering your
Good.
question, but asking another question. I have two questions that I jotted down that I think get to both of the things, because you there were a couple different things that you were talking about, and they are intertwined in this movie, but they're also in some ways I think a little separate. And that is, part of this movie is talking about addiction, and part of
Mhm,
this movie is talking about evil. So
mhm,
she is going through the process of addiction after she becomes a vampire, but then also the framing of this movie is through her lens as a philosophy PhD, learning about, writing about, thinking about evil, and where evil's place is in humanity. So I'm going to ask one of my questions, and we'll start from there, and I'll see if this if this does anything to kind of both of your understandings of the movie. So one of my questions I wrote down is, one thing this movie seems to talk about when it comes to addiction is, and this is from the writer and the director's point of view, so I'm not saying it's a general, like, this is what other people believe. I'm just going to take it for the writer and the director. Is addiction just another way to talk about being human in this movie? So the whole idea of the bloodlust is obviously a metaphor for heroin addiction. Ferrara said that, but I think he does take it a little bit further. I think in part of the movie, he's asking whether being addicted to anything, whether it's blood, power, pain, evil, whatever it might be, is just a part of being alive. And there's the idea, and I think she talks about it, I think Kathleen's character talks about it in a couple of different ways and different times, that as human beings, we're all just feeding off each other in different ways. And so I'll go back to my question. Is addiction just another way to talk about being human in this movie?
No.
Okay.
Oh, what do you?
I can see where maybe that was where they were trying to go. I'm not sure it read that way for me.
Okay.
But I see your point. I definitely could see the bloodlust as people feeding off each other metaphorically. That makes sense to me when you say it. I'm not sure watching it for the first time I got that. Now, to Pat's point, that could be because I'm just too simple to grasp what's happening here. Because, well, I probably am.
One of the interesting things about this movie and what made it different from other vampire movies is, in a lot of vampire lore and a lot of other vampire movies, the whole vampire lifestyle and the whole being of the vampire is a lot of times very tied up in being very, for lack of a better term, being very seductive, for being sexy vampires. And that is, I feel like, most vampire movies. I don't know about Bela Lugosi, but God, I have to stop for just a second. I'm going to interrupt myself. I've gone my entire life, I didn't realize I was mispronouncing his name.
Yeah, I remember that on one of the chat streams.
Did you
or
see
text
that on
streams
the?
that we
Yeah,
have.
I happened to catch a video where somebody had put up a video of, it's Bela Lugosi, not Bella Lugosi, and it's him actually reading the names of the actors involved in the movie. And when he reads his own name, he says Bela Lugosi, and I was like, I've been saying Bella so it's not a huge difference. I mean, tomato, Bella, same thing. But
Hey, as soon as you
Mama
were
call him
presented
Clay?
with the correct,
I'm going to call him Clay.
sure. But
soon as you were presented with the correct way to say it, you fixed it. Nobody's perfect. It's just the way it is.
I'm always trying to be learning.
Yeah,
Learning
yes.
is good.
Yeah, learning is good. So anyway, I mean, the whole idea, I think the director is wanting to say that. I think the director is wanting to say that addiction is another way of talking about being human. That drug addiction is, I don't think he's saying that drug addiction is a natural state for humanity to be in, but I think addiction to other things, like addiction to power, addiction to other people, addiction to screens, sure.
To put it in a modern context.
Yes, to put it in a middle school context and high school.
And screens, drugs, adoration, whatever, it's all dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a dopamine hit, and that's,
as humanity, we have a tendency towards getting addicted to things.
Right.
So I do think in a certain way, it's not that far off. Now, his is an extreme example, which I think watching this movie, if we ask that question, is addiction another way to talk about being human? I think this is a very extreme example, and probably where we'd want to say, well, not like that. But
that is not my version of humanity.
But I do think we do have, as human beings, I do think we have a tendency, to your point, Bo, it's dopamine. And I think we have a tendency towards, and there are companies and people that are very good at manipulating, our tendencies towards addiction. So I don't know, for me at least, I don't think it's too far off. I don't know if they hit the mark enough in this movie to get me to agree with them completely, but I, like you guys have said, I see where they were trying to go with it.
Hmm. Yeah, I, well, I thought I was understanding the movie until we started discussing it, and now I feel like I kind of feel like I have to go back and like change my answer to I don't get this movie.
That's fine. You don't have to change your answer at all if you don't want to.
Well, I do because new information has come to light, man.
Okay.
I hear you, and I don't want to say this from an argumentative standpoint because I mean what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but I just and it might be the idea that he chose to talk about drug addiction
Mhm.
as 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 you know the example of humanity's addiction as opposed to power or as opposed to you know I don't know about screens back in the 90s, but whatever we wanted to use, I guess I don't want to say the drug thing was a bad one, but yeah, I don't know. Now I feel like I have more questions than answers.
Well, and I think the drug, to have it be a metaphor for heroin addiction, I think that's just, it's very personal to him as a director.
Mhm.
And so I think that's why it probably doesn't, it certainly doesn't have as much of a personal connection to me. I mean, I could watch the movie and be like, okay, like I get where you're going. Like I don't probably feel it in the same way that he did by making it, or maybe somebody who's gone through that before might watch and experience this. But that's his addiction. Like there are others. I don't know if they made a movie about, if they made a movie, let's see, if they did a movie adaptation of the classic video game Burger Time, I feel like that would be more my addiction.
See,
Mhm.
now we're talking.
It's a combination of video games and burgers.
Burgers.
Burgers. Forbidden donut. Oh. Yeah. Okay, second question, and it's related to the idea of evil, but it's kind of similar to my first question, is so Kathleen's a philosophy student, makes that very clear. She's surrounded by reading about, talking about deep thinkers like Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, like some throws around a bunch of other names in here. None of that stops her from going full vampire. So knowing about, reading about, thinking about people that talk about evil, knowing about evil doesn't seem to make her immune to it. So is the movie, and we can agree or disagree on this, is the movie talking about evil not being an exception to humanity, but being part of humanity that is just there and present? Like, what is the movie, I guess, saying about evil? What did you catch the movie saying about evil? Because what I read into it is, of anybody, if a philosophy student, if you're going to talk about the subject of evil, probably some of the best people that do the most thinking about that might be philosophy or theology students. And
That
so
makes sense.
And so if whether she had been a philosophy or theology student, either way, she's probably doing more constant thinking about the concept of evil than anybody else. And so I think this movie is trying to paint her and her professor and some of these other people as quote unquote experts on the topic of evil. That doesn't prevent her from going full on brutal vampire later in the movie. So knowing about evil doesn't prevent her from doing evil. And she talks
So
about that. Yeah, go ahead.
and I'm gonna cycle back, and this is where my confusion lies. If you were going to explore it through the character of like a Michael Corleone,
Mm-hmm.
or what they reference, the massacre that took place during the war, and she passed the statement, "We're just going after one guy that was in charge of the army unit that you know massacred everybody in the village," but
Mm-hmm.
it's more than just one guy, and you're going to talk about soldiers that are forced to deal with incredibly inhumane and barbaric reality, and then okay, well, did they have to, did they become evil because of their surroundings? Was that something inside of them that those surroundings like allowed it to come out? I mean, I guess that's kind of even in some way, shape, or form what you see in the movie Apocalypse Now, right? Like
Hmm.
that to me is something, tangible. And I mentioned Michael Corleone, right? Like spoilers for The Godfather, but all he's trying to do is protect his family. But to what ends does he go, and does it make it right? Is he evil, or is that just the circumstances he's involved in? And like that to me, okay, well now we're talking about, is evil inside us or not? In my mind, as soon as you overlay drug addiction in there, I mean, are we saying that, and I thankfully don't have experience with it, right? Like it's
Hmm.
never been something that I personally have been had to deal with. But then are we saying that, like, okay, people that become addicted to drugs, if they start to fall into all the struggles is such an under, statement, but if they fall into all of that, is that just because they're evil and can't control the evil? Are we saying that then the strong and the people that aren't inherently evil can do drugs but not fall into that trap? And that's where I'm kind of like, okay, maybe the drug reference wasn't wasn't the best for this movie, because that was like the whole Christopher Walken character, right? You have to learn to overcome, you have to learn to, and it was like, okay, so was his character coming in saying, was that the voice towards like rehab and breaking the addiction? And again, and so that's where for me, if we're exploring evil, good and evil, I don't know that the drugs is the metaphor, or drugs is the proxy, or however, the right way to say it. That just, to me, it doesn't gel, because I don't see it as good and evil. Right? Yeah, it's an evil. It's a poison. It's what it's done to, so much of our society is bad, but that's not because people were forced into a choice, or, they just weren't strong enough to handle the addiction. I mean, I don't see it as like the ring of power, in Lord of the Rings. Like, don't give me that. I can't handle it, or only someone super noble can, handle it. I'm going to stop rambling, but that's where I'm struggling with this movie. Is I think I hear what you're saying, and is evil in all of us, and it's something we have to contend with, and temptation, and so on and so forth. Like another example, Star Wars, right? Like always tempted by the dark side, but you can choose your way to the light. I just don't see that. I don't see how that gels with drug addiction. And maybe I'm missing something, and I just need someone to explain it to me. And I'm not making any disparaging comments about the movie. It's just I'm not seeing it, and that I don't see how those things gel. I don't see how those things fit together.
Yeah, there's certain things for me that and I'm going back decades now to college, and what I can try to remember from my religious studies and philosophy classes that I took back then. But there's something about the way they try to address, I think, both of these things. They try to address the topic of evil and how does evil fit into humanity, and they try to address the idea of addiction and how does addiction fit into evil and humanity. And I think part of it, and the character you mentioned, the Christopher Walken character, and his whole vibe is having somewhat tamed his addiction by basically starving himself. And I think he even talks specifically about annihilating the self. And so part of I guess part of my question there, because there's a lot of spiritual imagery, there's a lot of Catholic imagery that shows up, especially kind of in the later half of the movie, or more towards the end of the movie, where you have, I mean, her basically part of her redemption is when she's given last rites by a priest at the end of the movie. And but it's kind of mixed in with and this isn't completely Buddhist, because I think this is kind of this may be like a misrepresentation of what a Buddhist might say about something, but the idea of not like, I mean, I think Christopher Walken's character talks about annihilating the self, and I think she maybe mentions annihilation of self at the end of it. But I think there's a little bit of a mixing in of Catholicism and Buddhism, and the idea of, to end that cycle of suffering and rebirth that you see in Buddhism, that you do that by getting rid of your desires. And so I think that might be part of what the Christopher Walken character is trying to say, is that he has kind of tamed his addiction. It's not completely gone, and it may never be gone. And I think she even kind of alludes to that at the end of the movie, or at least we kind of get that idea that she's been, I'm going to say, quote with quote fingers, quote unquote, redeemed by the end of the movie, and she's moving on to a different life. But I don't think that means she's not a vampire anymore. So I think it's always going to be there. I think it's blending some Catholic imagery of redemption and forgiveness with a little bit of Buddhist imagery of, if you starve your desires, like if you erase your desires and you're free from those, then you can break the cycle of, and in this case, I think they're tying it into the cycle of addiction. Like the cycle of, well, I think I can get out of this. Oh, no, I can't get out of this. I'm still too caught in it. Well, I think maybe I can try to get it. No, I can't do it. I'm still caught in this. And so I think there may be some overlapping of a lot of that stuff that makes some of the messaging a little confusing. At least that's what I'm coming away with.
Mm-hmm.
I get what they were trying to do, and I don't know if it's, again, like I said earlier, I don't know if it's relying and leaning so heavily on the philosophy stuff of it that what I think, it's not the movie I would have made. Let me put it that way. Like if I was going to make a vampire movie with a metaphor about addiction, I wouldn't have leaned quite so heavily on the philosophy and the constantly, I felt like I was sitting in a philosophy class every time somebody opened their mouth in this movie, except to bite someone. Like that was the only time it didn't feel like.
Well, right, because when they have a throat in their mouth, they can't quote
Correct.
Sartre at you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
I think therefore I am. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like, boy, I just,
I mean, I hate to be a pain in the neck, but that's just what that's how I feel about it.
That's right there, low hanging fruit.
Yeah. It is.
Someone didn't take us,
no, it's,
for a
I mean,
whole
it's,
jog.
it really, this movie is deep. I think it's something you can really sink your teeth into.
I knew it was
But
coming. I saw it coming at me down the tracks, and I couldn't stop it.
It's not as splashy if you choose something else. I just don't know. I just don't know, referencing heroin. I just don't know that's the same as, like, being addicted to heroin. I don't know if that's the same as being addicted to, overeating or undereating or body image or workaholic, or like, I just don't know if that's the same. I'm sure there's some commonalities. I'm sure there's plenty of people, boy, and if I'm saying something that's like full on cringe and our listening audience is like, oh man, Pat, you got that totally wrong. Like, that's fine. But that's where I say, like, okay, I thought I knew what this was about and what they were comparing it to. And I had some confusion, but now I'm like, man, I
think your take on it is valid. I think that is where, if you and Abel Ferrara, the director, if the two of you sat in a room, I think you'd disagree. I think he would probably try to tell you it is exactly the same thing. Like a heroin addiction is the same as being addicted to power, is being addicted to food, is being addicted to differing degrees of how that affects your life and the people around you and things like that, for certain. But at least what I'm coming away with in this movie is, I think what he's trying to tell us as a director is to say, this is something that I'm showing you an extreme example that means something to me. I'm saying this as if I'm the director. I'm showing you an extreme example because I have done heroin. I am a heroin addict. Therefore, I want to show you a story that means something to me. But I think, unless I'm getting this completely wrong, I think he would probably try to argue and say, this whole idea of addiction and the whole idea of how evil and doing evil to each other as human beings is all baked into what it means to be human. I think that's what he would argue. Now, if I'm wrong on that, he can come beat me up and tell me that I'm wrong. But I think that's what he's trying to say. That doesn't mean that what you're saying about the movie is wrong. I think that's his take on it as a director. At least it's what I walk away from this movie with is that's what he's trying to tell us.
Right. And I mean, obviously, and I mean this with Albert, because obviously he's the one with the statement and with this experience that I don't want to question that or question someone else's. I mean, I don't know very much about him, but if he's had to live that, then he reserves the right to tell the story that he experienced. But I also have ringing in my ears when they have people come in and talk about, when we've had experts come in and talk about addiction and what it does to someone and how, trying to get your fix will cause you to do, you'll steal from your parents, you'll destroy your family, all these things you'll do just to try and get your next fix. Right. And I mean, if we're a movie podcast, so we go the movie route, I mean, how much have we seen in, what was it, Traffic and maybe Drugstore Cowboy?
Yep.
And then what was the one with Robert Downey Jr. when he was very young? And
Bright Lights, Big City.
yeah. And if we're going the movie route and you're seeing that, was that just a case of they chose evil? Or was that a case of, no, you get mixed up in this stuff and then suddenly your brain is not working the same way? I mean, it's like it's being chemically rewired. I'm not an expert. I can only go off of what I've been taught by the doctors and the law enforcement and the counselors and everybody that has experienced people that have dealt with addiction. you know and so I look at that and say, okay, well, is it just because they're evil that they're making these choices and giving into being evil? Or is it that, man, this is not the same person after the drugs got done with them, right? Like after their, however you want to say it. And again, I kind of cycle back to, did we see addiction differently 30 years ago? Like many of the bands of the 80s that I remember, growing up and reading about, and it was like, oh man, those guys just partied too hard. And they were addicted to hard drugs and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now we would take a look at that and say, no, they're sick. They need treatment. They don't need ridicule and scorn.
I do want to correct something I said, because I think same book, different book, same author that it's based on. The movie Pat was talking about with Robert Downey Jr. is Less Than Zero.
I
From
knew we watched it. I just could not
We did.
remember the title.
Yep. That was I really enjoy Bret Easton Ellis's novels. Less Than Zero, I think, was his first novel, and Bright Lights, Big City was one of his other ones. So that's where I was getting a little confused between those. But the one Pat was talking about was Less Than Zero, not Bright Lights, Big City. No. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's what we walk away from this movie with is. It's the the director, the authors, the writer's message is trying to tackle the idea of death and addiction and all of that. And so, yeah, I think that's, depending on whether we want to take it as far as they do, I think that's the message behind this movie, and how well do they do it? How well do they tackle it? I mean, I think regardless of that, one of the things that I walk away from this is Lily Taylor does an outstanding job in her performance in this movie. Unfortunately, we only get to see Christopher Walken for like a hot minute and a half, but I think.
But it's a great minute
awesome.
and a half.
Yeah, yeah. Your teeth have gotten sharper. Sunlight is wow. That sucks. To be a vampire, literally. Ha! That was a joke.
This is the movie that I would love to have the director's commentary for.
Yeah.
Like, I would watch this movie again right now if I could just have the director's commentary and guiding me through kind of like what they're seeing, why they're seeing it that way, and what were they trying to tell?
Yeah. I believe that I believe you can find that. I believe that for the Blu-ray release, if I am correct, that was done by Arrow Video, and Arrow is known for putting out some pretty nice DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4Ks. I believe there was an audio commentary track on the Arrow Video Blu-ray release. So,
Well, I am going to have
yeah.
to consult the library for a interlibrary loan for that.
Yeah, so if you're able to track down that particular version of it, I want to say the Blu-ray or the 4K may have. And I feel like I just saw, maybe it was a few years ago. I did see somewhere the 4K release of it. And I want to say that wasn't recent. It was maybe 7 or 8 years ago that the Arrow Video put it out. But yes, so it could be available somewhere. So I have to go search that out, see if we can find it.
Yeah, I will watch this movie again for the director's cut. Like, I just explain to me what you were thinking. Like, I'm
And there
curious.
are some actually, you know what, if you go to YouTube, it won't give you full director's commentary, but if you go to YouTube, there are a couple of interviews with the director. So you might be able to catch those and kind of get a sense of what he was thinking. I did watch a couple of them. So he kind of does go into a little bit of like, he was really, really focused in on the idea of addiction and how addiction, like, why do we get addicted to things, and how does that mess with our mind and mess with our morality and all of that stuff. All right. Do we have anything else about the addiction before we sink our teeth into 3 questions?
Very thought-provoking movie.
Yeah, this is one of those kind of more obscure ones that ends up getting put on the list because it's a cult classic and because because our theme for October was mostly vampires. This seemed to be a good one. And Christopher Walken's in it. So why not have a couple of Christopher Walken movies in October?
Right.
All right. It's time for 3 questions. We're gonna lock you in the dungeon and ask you 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions.
3 questions.
What were they, psychos?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Quid pro quo. I tell you things, you tell me things.
I'm not interrupting anything, am I? You really look deep in thought.
So I'll ask you the questions and then we'll see, all right?
All right. So the first of our questions is, what is the most, and I didn't put favorite, I didn't put best, I put, what is the most memorable movie about addiction? So movies that you have seen, a movie that you saw, and that when you think of addiction of some kind, doesn't have to be drugs, addiction of some kind, a movie that stuck with you long after you watched it.
Traffic.
Okay. Yeah.
And for multitude of reasons. I mean, there are some great performances in that movie. There are some great cinematic choices in that movie. The color palette is interesting. The contrast between the scenes in other countries and the scenes in Washington, D.C. Yeah, I could go on about that movie a lot, but Traffic would be what comes to mind when you talk about addiction movies for me.
Sure. Yeah.
First one that came to Traffic's a great one. You know, the first one that came to me was Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Solid.
Boy, that's a rough watch, I'll tell you that.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm kind of along the same lines as you guys. Like, one of the first ones that came to mind was Leaving Las Vegas. Maybe just because we did that one not too long ago. We did that one just earlier this year. That one, Traffic also, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, like, there are, if Traffic's the one I'm remembering correctly, there are some elements of that, like, not me personally, but within my extended family, like, there are some elements that I can recall that, you know, some of that have a very real indirect connection to some elements of what was happening in that movie. So that, very, very memorable. Another one from the same year as Traffic, Requiem for a Dream. So I think, though, I may have to daily double it, and I may have to go Leaving Las Vegas, and that might just be more recency bias than anything. But that one, and that was, if I'm remembering right, I think watching it for the podcast was the first time I had seen that movie. So that one is definitely, that one's front of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Question number 2. Did you ever take a philosophy class?
I did one quick semester at CLC, and I remember not much of it.
That's probably okay.
It's been a very long time.
Yeah.
I have not taken a philosophy class.
Okay. That surprises me, Pat. I feel like of any of us in the room here, in the virtual room here, I feel like you would have taken a philosophy class.
Maybe I'm just a simpleton.
Well, you keep saying that.
You know what?
I do not think that word means what you think it means.
Yeah. You know, I find it interesting, and and it might be that I find it interesting on like the 100 level. You know what I'm saying? I'd love to take philosophy 101. I had a pastor one time described it like that. Like, yeah, every subject is interesting at the 100 level. It's when it gets more in depth that it gets hard. But I've always liked different outlooks on the world and different ways. And correct me, like, isn't philosophy? I'm going to say this is going to sound really dumb, and I don't mean it dumb, but what is exactly philosophy? I know there was that line in The Last Crusade, right? If you're looking for truth, the philosophy class is right up the hall.
Yeah.
And here we deal with fact. And I don't know if that was just a cool line that they threw in, or if that's actually kind of a good way to simply describe it. But, understanding how the world works,
yeah,
and outlooks and all that. I mean, I've always found that very fascinating. Everything from, I remember I really fell into like existentialism and reading all those books. I can't say I was smart enough to understand all of it, but just I like it all. But I never took like a class in it.
Yeah.
So I more than just being able to define it, I almost said Bram Stoker's dictionary, the Webster dictionary, philosophy is this. I don't even know if I fully understand what it is or what you're trying to do with philosophy. And I mean that on a deeper level. Like, I mean, I get what they're trying to say. They're trying to explain the world around you, but what is, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too deep and I'm sounding like a fool, but yeah, I haven't ever done that, but I've been tempted sometimes just to look up a syllabus of a local college and just see what the reading list is, and just on my own get the books and read through them.
Yeah. Well, a couple
But
things.
no, I've never.
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, I'm really excited to go try to find Bram Stoker's dictionary.
I was gonna say that's awesome. That's Bram Stoker's dictionary.
Forget Webster. Oxford, out of here. Yeah. Roger, take a back seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the definition, as best as I can boil it down from what I remember, because yes, I did take a philosophy class, and yes, it was the 100 level, because I feel like once you get to like the 200 and 300 level, it's it's stuff like Professor Arsenio Hall teaching you things that make you go,
yeah,
kind of a deal. That's where, I mean, I remember having a few friends that were in as philosophy majors, and the deeper and deeper they got into it, I mean, a freshman level class was enough for me. And the deeper and deeper they got into it, I'm like, are we maybe digging too deeply? I mean, I understand wrestling with these type of questions, but
at some point you're just making this stuff up.
At some point you might be talking in circles. Now, I don't say that to belittle anybody with a philosophy degree or, anything like that. But for me and my experience with it, it kind of reached a point where I was like, yeah, okay. I'm gonna let you go. I'm the guys to let you talk, and then I'm gonna go over here and do something else because I confused now. No, but no. To your point, I think the definition of philosophy is really just asking the big questions about life, and like, how do you live once you kind of start, I don't know that you're ever going to fully answer some of those questions, but like, how do you live? How do you understand the world? How do you understand our place in the world? What this movie tries to tackle, some ideas about good and evil and things like that. And I think it's almost like being when a child continually asks why over and over and over again, but doing it in a way that is trying to dig at some of those questions like what is right and wrong, good and evil? Like what's the meaning of life? Do we have free will? What is reality? How do we know what we know? Like those type of things. I think it's that. Like I think that's the simplest way to put it is you're just constantly asking why to the big questions of existence, and then as you ask those why questions, trying to figure out, all right, fine, then how do we live based on that?
Mm-hmm. Knowing yourself. And that's where I
Yeah.
think, like you were saying, it can kind of run off the rails is like, okay, I need to figure out myself, but I know that's an ongoing thing. And I don't want to just sit here and swirl the drain. Like it to me, it's an everything in moderation, right? Like,
Yeah.
questioning who am I gets me so far, but it can't get in the way of me acting and living and yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I need to pick up one of that. Maybe you still have a copy of your syllabus from, those 5 years ago when you were in college.
Yeah.
If you still have a copy, I'll get it and I'll take a look and I'll just start taking out books on the reading list.
Yeah. Or you can just watch the end of the Matrix movie that has the architect in it.
There you go.
That's it.
And if you,
That's it. It all comes back to the Matrix.
Here's the thing. I think if you could watch that scene with the architect and understand what he's talking about, I think then you at least have reached the 200 or 300 level of a philosophy class. If you can successfully and accurately use the term vis-a-vis multiple times, I think you understand philosophy.
You keep saying ergo. What I think you mean is i.e.
Right.
I don't mean i.e. I mean ergo. As far as I know, i.e. means for example. I.e. ergo. I'm sorry. I went to the Get Shorty thing. That's all I could think of.
That's fine. That's our level of philosophy is Get Shorty.
Yeah, that's it.
No.
The architect stuff wasn't that confusing. It's just that I'm a Matrix fan, so I'm going to be biased with it, but I think that movie was just so grand in scope in terms of what they were, you know what I'm saying? Like what they were trying to tell and just how complex and how many variables there were in that story. It wasn't like a straight line that just all came together nice and tidy. Like, I don't know, but that's a story for how long till the Matrix? 4 more years?
4 more years to the first one, yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
God, I love those ones.
Well, I feel the architect's speech is not, I don't think the ideas behind it are complex. I think, and this is probably sometimes the problem I have with philosophy and when philosophy has to get communicated, is I think sometimes the language that's used to do philosophy speak is so high academic that I think it's part of me feels like you lose the meaning behind philosophy in the first place. If it's about tackling the big questions and how do we live, that if you can't translate that into layman's terms, then that's where you start to lose me.
Well, those are the great teachers, right?
Right.
Like, Bo, like our colleague, Randy Sundell, band director. I mean, that guy can teach incredibly complex topics that are topics that musicians will, work towards for their entire career, their entire life. And he is able to take that and like make it make sense to a 6th grader. And with 3 words, point them in the right direction. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's teachers like that I mean, that's the fascinating thing, the ones that can break it down like that, right? I think what was the other example I was just gonna give another example of someone that can take these big concepts and just break it all down, and it slipped right out the top of my head, so I'm sorry. But I think that's exactly like you said. It's they are incredible concepts and complex. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Leonard Bernstein, he did a whole series of lectures, I think it was at Harvard, about what is music. I mean, literally just talked, and you can find the tapes about what is music, and then was able to explain it on incredibly advanced, high level terms, like really get academic on it. And then you watch his lectures to kids about what is music, and it's like he's saying the same thing, but just in a way that makes sense to kids. It's incredible. Wynton Marsalis is like that too. Wynton Marsalis is just such an intelligent, just brilliant individual, talented. And I mean, listening to him talk in interviews, speak in interviews about music and how that relates to life. I mean, it's incredible how he can just bring all these different concepts together and then relate it back to jazz music or music, just period, not just jazz music, but music. But then break it down and do a kids concert and like share those concepts with kids. It's incredible when you have individuals like that can just understand it on that high level, but then explain it in a simple way. Give you just enough of what you need to get you to the next level. To where 10 years from now, I'm like, oh, that's what he meant. Okay. Huh. It took me a decade to understand that, but
a decade well spent.
Yeah.
All right.
But you're right. It's incredible. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Finally, question number 3. Favorite Lily Taylor role?
It's a tougher one than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
She's been in some good stuff. I mean, one of the earliest things I remember seeing her in was Mystic Pizza.
Yep. There's a lot in the middle I haven't seen.
Yeah.
But I did, and I had admittedly not thought about this role in a long time. But as I was scrolling through her IMDb list, I stumbled upon her role as Sheriff Lillian Holly in Public Enemies.
Mm-hmm.
That was good.
Yeah. It's been forever since I've seen that movie. I remember really liking it.
I also stumbled. She was in 4 Rooms.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, that's going to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, Mystic Pizza, that's probably one of the earliest ones I remember her in. She was in Shortcuts, which we did, I think, a couple of years ago. That was the one where there were a bunch of short segments that were kind of all brought together. I think they were intertwined in certain ways, but that was the one where each of the different segments was based on a story by Raymond Carver, who was one of my favorite authors. And she was in, she has a very Bond girl sounding name in that movie. But yeah, she's in one of the segments in that one. And I mean, she's been in some other ones that we've done just in the last few years. She's in Born on the 4th of July. She was in Say Anything. One of the ones,
small part in Rudy.
Yeah. One of the ones I remember her from is her part in Ransom, the one with Mel Gibson and why am I blanking? Gary Sinise. Yeah, I liked her in that one too. So really, I almost think any one of those. Like I'm happy with any one of those. I might go Mystic Pizza just because that's the first time I remember seeing her in something. But she's been in a lot of really good stuff from that point on. She was in at least 2 episodes of Mad About You later on. This is also, I feel like this movie is also not the reunion, but can we call it a pre-union of people who will eventually go on to be in a Law and Order TV show.
So many Law and Orders, so little time.
Well, because you have Catherine Irby is in this. You have Annabella Sciorra, and both of them were different partners in Law and Order: Criminal Intent. Catherine Irby was Vincent D'Onofrio's partner, and I think Annabella Sciorra there was a stretch of time where it was, what was his name? Chris Noth?
Yep.
And was she also sometimes, why am I blanking on the name? Jurassic Park. Reclining shirtless.
What?
Goldblum?
Yes, Jeff Goldblum. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking of the meme where he's like reclining with his shirt pulled back and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. The images that pop into my mind when I'm trying to think of somebody's name, I don't know.
I don't know if I want to know.
I'm not questioning. I just,
It was either that or I start doing the Jeff Goldblum laugh, and I didn't know if anybody was going to get that one.
Mhm.
That whole thing. Yeah, so at different times, I don't remember if she was one of Jeff Goldblum's partners, but she was, I think, Chris Knopf's partner in that, but in Law & Order Criminal Intent. And then Lily Taylor was in, I think, at least a couple of episodes, maybe, of Law & Order SVU.
Mm.
So this is the pre-union of women that will eventually be on Law & Order.
Okay.
So much Law and Order.
Yes.
Law and Order. Order and Law.
Mm-hmm. All right. Did we get everybody's?
Yeah.
For that last question? Okay. All right. All right. Well, that's going to do it for The Addiction. So again, if you're into philosophy and vampires and black and white movies, this is definitely a movie that you might want to go check out. So make sure that you track that down. There were, I think, a couple of different places where you could find it streaming for free. So you can go check those out. For the rest of this month, we are still in October. We're still in mostly Vampires month. So far this month, we'd had another Christopher Walken movie, The Prophecy, that started it off. We had Vampire in Brooklyn. This week was The Addiction. Here in just a few days, we're going to be putting out our 10th anniversary rewatch of Jacob's Ladder from 1990. Next week, we've got Dracula Dead and Loving It, and then we are going to finish off the month with Species. Well, we have a lot of really, really good stuff coming up. If you're joining us over on the Patreon, our Patreon short is Tank Girl from 1995, and the full-length episode is Lord of Illusions from 1995. And let me just say, that Tank Girl will be the Patreon short, so it's like 10, 15-ish minutes long. I had never watched that movie. I had read a couple of the Tank Girl comics back in the 90s, but I'd never watched the movie. It's interesting.
I have heard that.
Let's just people can tune in. The Patreon shorts are free, available to anybody who joins us on Patreon. You don't have to be a paid Patreon supporter to get those Patreon shorts. So you can tune in. You can listen to that one for free. It's interesting. It's an interesting little look at how the 90s tended to approach comic book properties and turning them into movies of some kind. All right. And on that note, Pat, Bo, thank you for being here.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
All right, everybody, go watch some scary movies. Be excellent to each other. Don't be evil to each other. Be excellent to each other. And go watch some scary movies. And we will see you back here next time.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week. 30 years in the making.